welcome back, fans, to another episode of the ECHL Insider. I am your host, Garrett Hunter, welcoming you to our first off-season episode here in 2025 off-season. So let's get you some news before we go into this week's episode, ECHL Awards. So with news, we'll start it off with the coaching hires that have been announced in these past 2 weeks. We'll start in Iowa, where Chuck Weber is now the new head coach of the Iowa Heartlanders. Derek Damon accepted a job in the junior hockey ranks with the Des Moines Buccaneers. And as well as Damon, he took along his assistant from Iowa, Kevin Schmidt. So Heartlanders without both a head coach and assistant coach, but they fill that head coaching position now with Chuck Weber. Let's talk about him for a second. A proven winner in the ECHL. I think this is just a splash hire for the Heartlanders. A two-time Kelly Cup champion as the head coach of the Cincinnati Cyclones in 2008 and 2010. So he's proven that he can do it in the ECHL. Yes, 15 years ago, but still, he's done it. So I think this is a great hire for the Heartlanders. Definitely some optimism. I think this fan base can rally around Weber and put a smile on their face, definitely, as they look for a second consecutive playoff appearance coming up this next season. And next, the Reading Royals have announced Anthony Peters to be their next head coach after, honestly, a surprising coaching change. They fired Jason Binkley despite making it into the playoffs on the last day of the regular season. They were swept 4-0 to the Trois-Rivières Lions in the first round, but we all know where the Trois-Rivières Lions went. They ended up bringing home the hardware, so to speak, in the playoffs. So, yes, disappointing to get swept in the first round, but this is a team that was grinding it out really from January, a playoff race with the Railers, just tons of obstacles to jump over. The last day of the regular season, they make the playoffs, and yes, it's cut short, only 4 games in, but that didn't matter. The organization decided that we're going to move on from Binkley. They hire Anthony Peters. And I honestly have to wonder, is this a coaching change that Jason Binkley isn't going to take the Royals where we want to go? Or is it Anthony Peters is a former assistant coach now of the Florida Everblades? We think that he's just a better fit for our organization. Maybe that was the headspace that they were in. But definitely a controversial decision. Some people like it, some people don't. But, Anthony Peters, though, his resume speaks for himself, right? An assistant coach now of 2 seasons with the Florida Everblades. He won a Kelly Cup with them, their 3rd consecutive Kelly Cup. And then this year helped Brad Ralph take them all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, where they fell to the Trois-Rivières Lions. So he, just like Chuck Weber, he's got a lot of ECHL success under his belt. So definitely, again, optimism in Reading. Whether you agree or disagree with the coaching change, Anthony Peters is a guy you want behind your bench. So 2 very interesting coaching hires with the Heartlanders and Royals. Final piece of news for you. The Florida Panthers are now the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions in the NHL. They defeated the Edmonton Oilers for the 2nd straight year, 4-2, to be the 2025 Stanley Cup champion. The most coveted trophy in all of sports. Yes, the Stanley Cup belongs to the Florida Panthers, so we wanted to say congrats to them. Well, let's get into our content now for this week. ECHL Awards. So many cool awards given out that we now have time to get to in the off season. So let's start with the biggest one. Why not? The MVP. We mentioned it. I think a lot of people know by now. Brandon Hawkins of the Toledo Walleye. Now, the 2nd consecutive year, he's named the ECHL MVP. And this guy is just so fun to watch night in, night out. It doesn't matter if it's regular season or playoffs. He is just a incredible player to watch in this league at this level. Hawkins is a guy who just elevates the entire locker room, elevates his whole line, and this whole team was better this year because of Brandon Hawkins. And these last 2 years have been just spectacular for Toledo because of this guy. And he is now the only the second player ever in the ECHL to win back-to-back MVP awards. Chad Costello did it with the Allen Americans on their Kelly Cup runs back in 15 and 16. But Chad Costello, if that's a familiar name, he's now the head coach of the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. So he's still in the ECHL. Brandon Hawkins, see how long he continues to play in the ECHL. But if he follows Costello's footsteps, he could be a head coach one day. So just an interesting comparison there. But definitely deserving an MVP award is Brandon Hawkins. Now let's talk about the runner-up for MVP, the goaltender of the year, Cam Johnson of the Florida Everblades. Oh my word. What a spectacular season Cam Johnson had. All season long, he was just a shutdown force for the Everblades between the pipes for Florida. I mean, he was the guy who got them to the playoffs in just such a dominating fashion. A lot of people called him into question with that round 3 loss to Trois Rivières. I wouldn't say that's the case. I think Trois Rivières was just on another just gear really as the playoffs went on. They were on a mission all the way to the Kelly Cup title. So for Cam Johnson, yes, did he have some rough games in that series? Of course, but Cam Johnson as a goaltender in this league is just spectacular. He has a very bright career ahead of him. He's played several years. He'll probably play a few more, but I would expect to see him move up in the next few seasons to the AHL. He is just spectacular and definitely someone who might get their name and number up in the rafters in Southwest Florida in a few years. He has just been the backbone. He's won 3 consecutive Kelly Cups before this season with the Everblades. Spectacular is Cam Johnson, and he was the runner-up for MVP, in fact. So that was pretty cool to see. Now let's talk about Coach of the Year. It went to South Carolina Stingrays head coach Jared Nightingale as the Stingrays captured the Brabham Cup championship, the regular season champions. But for the Stingrays, it ended this year with a bitter taste in their mouth, right? A Game 7 first round elimination to the Orlando Solar Bears left just a lot of puzzled faces in South Carolina this season. They expected to go deep into the playoffs. They expected to be the one to challenge and maybe take out the Florida Everblades, but they didn't even get to the second round. They met their match with the Solar Bears. Really, nobody gave Orlando a chance in that first round against South Carolina. But if you remember, you saw our playoff episodes. I picked that upset for Orlando. So, but that was a fantastic series to see, and Orlando to pull off that upset, just fantastic. But Jared Nightingale, a first-year head coach in this league, to take this team from missing the playoffs last season to a Brabham Cup title, we can't overlook that. You know, this is a South Carolina team that made so much improvement, just complete roster turnover by Nightingale, and he took them to an 18-game win streak and to a top seed in the playoffs. So that, yes, a bitter end for South Carolina, but they have to recognize, you know, what a season they had. And Nightingale, no longer the coach of the Stingrays, he accepted the head coaching job in the AHL with the Rockford Ice Hogs. So he was moving on. And now for South Carolina, right? Who's going to fill his shoes? Those are some big shoes to fill in North Charleston that still right now are empty. We'll see who gets that job as head coach of the Stingrays. But Jared Nightingale, what a season it was. Just 1 year as the head coach of the Stingrays, but definitely a memorable one. And next up, Rookie of the Year. We gotta talk about Sloan Stanek, the Rookie of the Year from the Tahoe Night Monsters. This Tahoe team, in just their first year of existence, a really young roster, but a really talented roster. I think we saw that down the stretch. This was a team that went all the way to the second round, losing to the Kansas City Mavericks in 4 games in the Mountain Division Finals. But for the first year of a franchise, to be led by a guy like Sloan Stanek was just incredible to see. He was really a young leader, a young presence in that locker room for Tahoe, and we got to see a really fantastic inaugural year out west in Nevada for them. So really cool to see. And, you know, he's got a lot more years ahead of him in hockey, most likely. So Sloan Stanek, we'll see how far he's able to move up in the ranks. Well, finally, the sportsmanship of award of the year, that went to Peter Bates of the Wichita Thunder. Bates, a skilled forward in this league. He only took 10 penalty minutes this year. 10. I mean, he's not the guy who's going to go and drop the gloves every night, or really ever. Peter Bates, just a fantastic player, a leader most definitely in that Wichita locker room. They had a great season. Yes, they were eliminated in the first round of Tahoe, but a great season for this Wichita team. We'll get into more in the offseason. But, Peter Bates, a leader. When you take only 10 penalty minutes and you score the amount of goals that he can score, just really cool to see. And Peter Bates definitely deserves this Sportsmanship of the Year award. He was spectacular and led Wichita all season in a very, very good way. Well, that'll do it for ECHL Awards. Make sure to subscribe below so you don't miss any of our off-season content, and we will see you again in 2 weeks for more of our off-season content.